Hi, it's Dave here. This is my wife, Kathy.
Hello.
This is the Cinemile. It's the podcast where we walk home from the movies. Today we're going to go see a movie with our kids called The Garfield Movie.
We're thrilled, as you can tell.
This is for them. This is our son Oscar requested this.
He requested it. They've seen a lot of ads and they eat a lot of cheese strings, and on the front of cheese strings at the moment says Garfield X cheese string.
So let me address the this up top, because a lot of people online and in podcasts I've listening to have been turning their nose up at the Garfield movie ahead of its release, thinking Garfield, that's not going to do well at the box office. Kids don't know who Garfield is. And
they're completely misunderstanding how kids consume films.
Exactly, because they are correct in that kids do not know who Garfield is, because Garfield has no cultural presence anymore.
Yeah. But kids need to see one trailer for a movie in the cinema.
Exactly.
And they need to see it on the front of their cheese strings.
Yeah.
And then they want to go see it.
I want to see that.
Yeah.
I want to see the cat. I want to see the orange cat up to zany antics.
Like, that cat eats pizza? Like, I actually have no, I'm not turning my nose up at it or down at it. I'm just like, I have no interest in it from the trailer I've seen, but I'm very happy because we love going to the cinema with the kids. Very happy to go.
I'm turning my nose up at it. My nose is up.
This
is also, why is Chris Pratt Garfield?
What
the fuck?
I don't care that he's Garfield. I'm just confused. Studios. You know this other voice actors Awkwafina doesn't have to play every woman now, and Chris Pratt doesn't have to play every man.
God, it's driving me mad.
It's bizarre.
Also, lads, just putting Chris Pratt in your animated movie doesn't equal box office success. I know you're probably looking at the numbers and saying,
he did Super Mario.
Lego movie. Ooh, Super Mario.
Yeah.
Ooh, let's get him in. That is not
Super
Mario and Lego are the brands, not Chris Pratt.
Yeah.
Get a bloody voice actor in. All he does is he does a fine job, but it's just you can wheel him out on the press tour, I guess. But I think it's sad. I think we've sad where we've got all these talented voice actors who have just been edged out by celebrities.
Yeah, I think so too. But I also just think to this point it's completely pointless. Because at least with Kung Fu Panda, Jack Black will come out and release a song "Hit Me Baby One More Time," which your kids are loving. He'll be on the press tour doing kung fu kicks. Chris Pratt isn't doing anything that's
not
exciting.
True. No, not true. Chris Pratt is out there eating lasagnas every day on the press tour. He's hounding down pepperoni pizzas.
Is he really?
No, I don't.
I'm you wait, he eats carbs. Anyway, we need to go, and we'll come back after we've watched what's it called? The Garfield Movie.
It's called The Garfield Movie, as trying to convince us that there hadn't already been 10 Garfield movies. There was at least 2 with Bill Murray.
But also, as Chris Pratt himself would say, but first God.
What?
That's what his bio says at the moment.
Oh,
but first God. And then it says, go see Garfield in theatres.
Oh, no.
Never been with a plate. Don't need a spatula.
No, please, no. Ow, it's so hot. Ow, it's really hurting. Ow, ow,
ow. You deserve to be seen with somebody as fly.
Say when.
Never, John. Bury me in cheese. Oh.
I apologize in advance. The eating you're about to see will not be pretty. And if you have young children, this would be a good time for them to leave the room.
You ain't never seen nobody this fly. Oh.
Hey, Junior, this is Vic, my father.
You ever jumped a train?
I've never jumped.
Here's that stop.
Really? Where?
Oh, Odie, you think he'd see that coming?
Okay, we're back. We've seen the Garfield movie, and if this is your first time on the Cinemile, we will not spoil the I know people are very sensitive about Garfield spoilers.
There's huge twists in this one.
So don't worry. This is a safe space. We don't spoil it until we get to Spoiler Street, when we will reveal who Garfield's real father is. Right, Kathy. We don't care what you think. Tell us what the kids thought.
Loved it.
They did, didn't they?
Edge of their seats.
They're so happy.
So happy. Laughing their heads off. Talked about it the whole way home. So that's a review from a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old. They loved it.
And actually, that's all that matters. So this has been the Cinemile.
It's not all that matters, because there needs to be, I think, we have both been to really bad. Our bar for kids movies is relatively low, because we've sat through some stuff that you're basically AI made this.
The general populace probably aren't aware.
They're not aware of the
There's
dregs.
a whole subculture of animation that gets released on the regular to cinemas,
particularly over summer holidays.
A lot of them are it's a lot of it's international cinema. A lot of it's just direct
Yeah.
Just stuff you've never heard of.
You've never
There's a
heard
whole
of and will
series
never
about
hear of.
mummies and explorers. We've seen 2 of them.
Yeah.
And there's just bad stuff. So
It's very bad
This
stuff.
is at least a movie.
This is a studio movie.
Yeah.
Like recently there was a group of us in the family who went to see this movie which name I can't remember, and I was like, this film was written, scripted and visualized by AI. I actually went out shopping for 45 minutes of the film and came back and missed nothing. But no, Garfield.
Is that the one about the cats?
Yes, I did have a 15-minute nap, but it's decent. Chris Pratt is fine like he always is. Was he worth however millions of dollars they paid? Absolutely not.
I had a nap as well. I looked over to make sure Kathy was awake after her nap, then I went for a nap.
You know what? I laughed a bit. I thought the story was decent. Like essentially Garfield, who we all know loves sitting around the house and eating and doing nothing, has to leave the house and go on like an adventure. I thought the adventure was decent. I actually thought there was some good adventure movie elements in, like a few Mission Impossible homages thrown in.
Yeah.
So I thought the story was decent. I liked all the different creatures. There was some cows I very much liked. I think it's totally fine, but like, will it like revive Garfield? Maybe. There could be Garfield teddies being produced.
I think it's doing big numbers.
We're most pleased to see is that the cheese string tied into the movie.
Yeah, because the guys, there's a whole bit in a cheese factory in the
like
middle
our
of
kids
this.
are addicted to cheese strings, and it's so funny because Dave and I were complaining quietly amongst ourselves that like it says Garfield X cheese string on the front of the packet, but when you open it, he's not on the cheese strings at all. So I've called bullshit on this. But no, it paid off in the movie. They used cheese strings. Our kids went wild.
He like jumps over a giant cheese string at one point, and our kids both like turned to us and we were like, "He's on a cheese string," and it was for them. That was like that was their Avengers Endgame moment.
Exactly. But for me, because Dave and I, like before we had kids, would often go to like Pixar's, you know, by ourselves, and like we love animation.
Well,
would I ever sat through this without kids? 100% not.
One of the earliest episodes of this podcast was us choosing to go see The Secret Life of Pets.
Yeah.
The first one.
And that was
hungover.
that was borderline.
It was one of the worst experiences of my life.
Yeah, that was borderline one of those movies where you're like, you shouldn't be going with that kids, it's not worth it. But anyway, Dave, what do you think about Garfield?
I think it is not deserving of the critical hammering it seems to be getting.
I agree, yeah.
Like it's being, and I think it's just nastiness.
I think people are I think
this.
part of the problem is though because it's, I think the general movie going public does, as we say, get confused between like your bog standard kids movie and then the really good kids movies. And I think because the Garfield brand is beloved and you've got a famous voice actor who has done like the Lego movie, which is beloved.
Yeah.
I don't know if people are coming at it. They're coming at it from a very high expectation. We come at these from very low expectation. So then your experience is very different.
And if you think of like there, as you said, the scale. If there's a scale of animation where on the top you've got classic Pixar telling beautiful stories that can enthrall children and make adults think and make you fall in love with characters and work for every quadrant. And if you've got, and I'd put the Lego movie up there as well, and then if you've got mid-tier, which is like Super Mario Brothers and all that stuff, which is just colour and sugar, and here you go kids, and a lot of the DreamWorks stuff falls into that category.
Yeah.
And then you've got the bottom tier stuff, which we talked about earlier, which no one's ever heard of, but it exists.
And we don't
trust us.
Reviews for it because we know none of you will have seen it.
Trust us, they exist. And then this is, I'd say, somewhere between the middle and the bottom. It's fine. This is totally fine. I like, the first thing is it entertained our kids for 90 minutes.
Yeah.
They had a great time. We all had a nice trip to the cinema.
Yeah.
And I was not bored out of my mind.
Yeah.
I thought it, as you said, no, that's a high praise for
this is not like
a
Paw
low-end
Patrol movie
animated
last
movie.
year, which was really bad.
No.
Yeah.
This is like it's got some gags. It's going for a real wacky Looney Tunes sort of sometimes meta sort of commentary. I think it's trying to punch above its weight in terms of being clever and ironic and kind of funny for the adults, and also just have wacky zany physical comedy for the kids. I don't think it really succeeds on all those levels, but I'd rather it attempt that and fail.
And also kids love food, so like our kids will just watch Garfield eating and think that's really fun.
It's funny, like
they were even like, oh look, when we got home they're like, look what he does with his mouth, and they're trying to open their mouth. What I don't like is like the kind of underlying, barely there but is sort of there, fat shaming.
Well, it's not
just
really.
think
He's
that's
never
like-
shamed for it. If anything, he's celebrated for
I
the 40,000 calories he eats every day.
I don't know. I would have liked a bit less of the body talk, but
No, but they don't really focus on his body. They say he's lazy.
Underlying, I felt it was there.
Yeah.
But
Well, look,
the-
that's a legacy of like if you take away like what is Garfield as an idea, he's just a lazy cat that eats a lot. If you take that, that's his core.
MO.
That's when they sat down to write this Garfield movie,
No,
they
but
would
this
have
is
written a
basically
circle of.
for anyone who doesn't know, and I just don't think we need to record spoilers for this one, to be honest. It's Garfield's origin story, and like
Yeah, which also nobody
nobody
needed.
cares about. But like it added a layer of depth to Garfield. Like
Yeah,
next time I
sure.
watch Garfield now, I won't just be like, oh, Garfield eats lasagna. I'll be like, there's a backstory here.
Actually,
He's finally reconnected with his father.
it was all played out exactly as you expected, but I found it quite touching at one point.
Yeah. Anyway,
in
I
a very cheesy way.
I don't think we need to go to spoiler street. There's nothing really for us to spoil here.
No.
We'll save the huge twists for your own experience. You've been warned. It's quite a ride.
I don't think I'd recommend this to anyone who doesn't have kids. There are a lot of animated movies I would.
Or who doesn't you might bring a niece and nephew or whatever.
Oh sure, yeah. No, bring your
It's
kids along. You'll be
It's not
entertained
one
enough.
it's not one like for just an adult audience,
No.
for sure.
But it's
It's fine.
well, got a few laughs. I don't know.
And
It
look,
probably
I think-
doesn't even need this much.
We've given it too much time.
airspace.
And I'm just going to go home now and eat loads of cheese strings because, that advertising really worked on
I
me.
was really jealous of the amount of because he eats all my favorite foods. Like I think I
he
am the
just-
human Garfield.
He does eat a lot
But
of
he gets to
Italian.
eat so much more of them than I do.
He does.
Yeah.
And our kids loved his little dog that he lives with.
Odie.
Who
Yeah.
doesn't talk. Our kids love that dog because he was so cute.
Do you know what was interesting? Did you watch the Garfield cartoon that was on when we were
I mean,
kids?
even as a kid, I barely had any interest. Like,
Because that
there was nothing else
I used to
on.
watch that a lot, and what was interesting was the relationship with him and Odie, and I didn't read the cartoon strip. I don't know if it was present there as well. He used to torment that dog. Like he would just absolutely torment him.
Oh,
he
well,
was,
that's kind of
he
been
was
taken
his
out.
abuser.
They've taken it, and I'm glad to see
Yeah.
this. They've taken a lot of nastiness out of kids' stuff where like it's funny to pick on people or whatever.
Yeah, he's more of a sidekick in this, and he's like they've got an amicable relationship.
Yeah.
Which was a change. Now the only last thing I would there's more airtime needed here because the last thing I'd like to talk about is John, Garfield's owner.
Right.
Who
yeah.
I thought got a short shrift in this movie because I personally think
Justice for
he's
John.
the most interesting character. Yeah, and he's fascinating. Who is John? Give me more about John.
Yeah,
And
who orders who allows their cat to have
access to their credit
their
card.
phone
Yeah.
and like at any moment spend like $1,000 on takeaway food and doesn't ever like say, do you know what? Actually, I'm going to change the passcode on this phone because like
Yeah,
that's kind of a waste of money.
But as soon as you start asking these questions, you're asking yourself, how can a cat use a phone? How can a cat read? How is a cat able to enter the address for the delivery drones that
Yeah.
feature weirdly prominently in this movie?
There's a lot to the point where I left the cinema being like, wait, can you actually get drones to deliver food? Because this film's positing that you can.
I think
and
that-
maybe
I
in
think that
America you
exists
can.
in some cities,
It
yeah.
is a fast food nation.
Yeah.
Maybe that's like the next level of Irish delivery. We should invest in now, delivery drones. We'll make a fortune in a few years.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the future. The
It is
future
the
is
future.
drones.
Anyway, thank you for listening. Let us know if you've seen Garfield. Head over to @theCinemile on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Letterboxd, and yeah, come say hi.
Yeah, here's 2 bonus last thoughts from me.
Please
Um,
stop talking about
Number
Garfield.
one. This is Garfield adjacent. So one of my favorite things about the last 2 Garfield sort of quote unquote live action movies that were created, voiced by Bill Murray, is that the Bill Murray claims when asked about why he did those movies in interviews, he claims that he thought one of the Coen brothers was writing them because he looked at the screenplay credit and it said Joel Cohen, but it was a different Joel Cohen. I don't know, is he taking the piss? but that was very funny to me.
I think there's a
And-
reason Bill Murray did it because he spent 2 days in a VO.
Oh yeah,
box and got
probably
paid
I never
millions of
saw those
dollars.
movies, but I'm sure he phoned it in. Here's another. Oh, I got another minor fun fact. The guy that did the voice of the Garfield cartoon, so the original voice of Garfield that we used to watch, is the same voice actor that did Peter Venkman in the Ghostbusters. So then there was this full circle loop between Bill Murray taking over his role as Garfield then.
That is a fun fact.
And
Now,
then
please stop talking about
lastly, my
Garfield.
last Garfield fun fact is that there is a brilliant comic strip, and I should have looked this up ahead of time, but it's something like John Without Garfield, right? And so look that up. This was a big internet thing about 10, 15 years ago where somebody went through every Garfield comic strip and took out Garfield and then left John in talking to nobody, and it's one of the funniest things I've ever seen because he just presents like this absolute maniac. So it's something like John Without Garfield, so Google that
wait to
please
watch
and
that
have a
one.
laugh for yourself. No, you can't watch it, it's a cartoon strip.
And most importantly, if you haven't already done so, please subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts, and leave us a 5-star review. We would greatly appreciate it. It makes a huge difference, and we do read them all and appreciate them all. So thank you.
And email us. We're thecinemile@gmail.com. If you and subscribe to my Garfield weekly newsletter.
Oh, and finally, head over to patreon.com/thecinemile, where every month we do a retro movie review. We do a ton of TV reviews, and we are just about to start the weekly reviews of
House of the
Dragon.
Dragon.
Bye.
Bye.
Color me intrigued.